I still remember the exact moment my stomach dropped. It was supposed to be a simple Sunday dinner at my daughter Emily's house, but something felt wrong the second I walked in. She looked exhausted. My grandson Ethan barely spoke, and my son-in-law Jason, he was too calm, too polished. Later that evening, I stepped outside for air, and that's when I heard Jason's voice on the patio. Low, careful, calculated. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but something in me said, record this. When I listened back and heard him say, she still doesn't suspect anything. Once the papers are signed, it's done, my blood ran cold. If you've ever had a gut feeling that something wasn't right in your own family, I want you to stay with me. And before we go further, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. I read every comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if stories like this speak to you. Because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about trust. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my phone clutched in my hand like it was the only thing anchoring me to reality. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Jason's voice again, low, controlled, almost casual. She still doesn't suspect anything. Once the papers are signed, it's done. There was something about the way he said it that chilled me more than the words themselves. It wasn't anger. It wasn't panic. It was certainty. I must have replayed that recording 20 times, maybe more. At first, I tried to convince myself I was overreacting, that maybe I'd taken it out of context. Maybe he was talking about work. He was a financial advisor after all. Papers, signatures, that could mean anything. But deep down, I knew better, because I know my daughter. And something about Emily hasn't been right for a long time. The next morning, I made myself a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table staring at my phone again. I hesitated before calling her. I didn't want to sound paranoid. I didn't want to scare her, but I needed to hear her voice. She picked up on the third ring. Hi, Mom. Her voice was soft, too soft, like she was already tired and it wasn't even 9 in the morning yet. Hey, sweetheart, I said gently. Did I wake you? No, I've been up. A pause. Just getting ready for work. I could hear something in the background drawers opening maybe. Movement, but there was no energy in her voice. No warmth. Just effort. I was thinking about last night, I said carefully. You seemed a little worn out. She let out a quiet breath. Yeah, it's just been a busy week at the hospital. You know how it is. I did know how it was. I had spent decades working with children and families. I knew the sound of exhaustion. But this wasn't just exhaustion. This was something else. Emily, I said softly, are you okay? Another pause. Longer this time. I'm fine, Mom. Really, too quick, too practiced. I felt a knot tighten in my chest. Okay, I said, even though I didn't believe her. I worry about you. I know, she said, and for a brief moment I heard something real in her voice. Something fragile. I'm just tired, that's all. We talked for another minute about Ethan's school, about the weather, about nothing that mattered, and then she said she had to go. Love you, she said. Love you more, I replied. But when the call ended, I didn't feel reassured. I felt worse. I sat there for a long time staring at the wall, and then slowly, memories started coming back. Little things, things I hadn't paid attention to before. Emily used to call me almost every day. Now it was maybe once a week. She used to drop by with Ethan on weekends just to chat, to laugh, to sit in my living room and drink tea like we always had. Now there was always a reason she couldn't come. Jason's working, we're busy, maybe next week. At first I hadn't thought much of it. Life gets busy. People change. Marriages take time and energy, but now it felt like something had been slowly closing around her and I hadn't noticed. Or maybe I had noticed, and I just didn't want to see it. I remembered something she had said a few months ago. We were shopping together, something we hadn't done in a long time. She had picked up a coat, a simple navy one. Nothing extravagant, it's nice, I had told her. She had smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Yeah, she said. I'll have to check with Jason first. I had laughed at the time, thinking she was joking, but she hadn't laughed back. I mean it, she had added quickly. We're just trying to be more careful with spending. That had seemed reasonable. Responsible even. But now, sitting alone in my kitchen, that memory felt different. Heavier. Wrong. I I stood up and began pacing the room, my thoughts racing. Control over money, isolation from family, exhaustion, that recording. She still doesn't suspect anything. I stopped walking. "What are you doing, Clara?" I whispered to myself. Was I really about to accuse my son-in-law, my daughter's husband, of something serious based on a feeling and a partial recording? But then another thought hit me, sharp and undeniable. What if I'm right and I do nothing? That thought was worse than any fear I had about being wrong. I picked up my phone again and played the recording one more time. Jason's voice came through clearly in the quiet kitchen. "Once the papers are signed..." Papers? What papers? Financial, medical, legal? And why would Emily not suspect anything? Emily wasn't careless. She was careful, thoughtful. She read things. She asked questions. Unless someone had convinced her she didn't need to. Or worse, that she wasn't capable of understanding them. A cold wave of realization washed over me. I grabbed the edge of the table to steady myself. "No," I whispered. "No, he wouldn't." But even as I said it, I could feel the doubt growing, because I had seen the way Jason spoke over her at dinner, the way he answered questions for her, the way she went quiet when he corrected her, even gently. At the time it had seemed subtle. Now it felt like a pattern. I walked over to the window and looked out at the quiet street. Everything outside looked so normal, peaceful, safe. But inside me, something had shifted. This wasn't just a bad feeling anymore. This was a possibility I couldn't ignore. I went back to the table, sat down, and took a deep breath. "Okay," I said out loud, trying to steady myself. "Think. If something was wrong, really wrong, I couldn't just barge in and confront Jason. That could make things worse. It could push him to act faster, or isolate Emily even more. No. If I was going to do this, I had to be careful. I had to be smart. And most importantly, I had to be absolutely sure." I opened my contacts and scrolled slowly. There was one person I trusted completely when it came to things like this. Someone who had seen more than I ever had. I hovered over her name for a moment. Linda Hayes. We had been friends for over 30 years. She'd built a career helping people protect their assets, their families, their futures. If anyone could tell me whether my fears were justified, it was her. My finger hovered over the call button. For a second I hesitated, because I knew deep down that once I made that call, there would be no going back. Whatever this was, it was about to become real. I pressed the button. Linda didn't answer right away. The phone rang 4 times before her calm, familiar voice came through. "Clara, everything okay?" For a moment I couldn't speak. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear someone steady until that second. I'm not sure I said finally, my voice lower than usual. I think something might be wrong with Emily. That was all it took. Linda didn't interrupt. She didn't dismiss me. She simply said, "Tell me everything." And I did. I told her about the dinner, about the way Emily looked drained smaller somehow, about Ethan's silence, about Jason's overly polished charm that now felt rehearsed instead of genuine. And then I told her about the recording. There was a long pause after I finished. Clara Linda said carefully, "I'm glad you called me." Those words didn't comfort me the way I had hoped. They could mean anything, right? I asked quickly. Work-related? Financial paperwork? I mean, Jason deals with clients every day, maybe, she said. But the part that concerns me isn't the paperwork. It's the phrases "he doesn't suspect anything." That implies deception. My grip tightened around the phone. I thought so too, I admitted. "Listen." Linda continued, her tone shifting into something more professional, more focused. "I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I've seen situations where one spouse gradually takes control financially, legally, even medically, without the other fully understanding what they're signing." A chill ran down my spine. "Are you saying he could be tricking her into signing something?" I asked. "I'm saying it's possible," she replied, "especially if there's already a pattern of control." I closed my eyes. "There is," I whispered. "I just didn't see it clearly until now." Linda was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You need more information before you act. Don't confront him, not yet." "I wasn't planning to," I said quickly. "But I can't just sit here either." "No," she agreed. "You can't." We talked for another 10 minutes. She gave me practical advice. Observe, document, don't escalate. Pay attention to behavior, not just words. And above all, make sure Emily has a safe way to reach me if things get worse. When we hung up, I felt, not better exactly, but clearer. This wasn't in my head. And that meant I had to move carefully. 2 days later, I found my reason to go back. I called Emily that morning and told her I had picked up a small gift for Ethan, just a book I thought he'd like, and asked if I could stop by after school. There was a pause before she answered. Sure, she said. Jason should be home too. Something about the way she said it made my chest tighten. I won't stay long, I assured her. That's okay, she replied quickly. It's fine. But it didn't sound fine. When I pulled into their driveway that afternoon, everything looked perfectly normal. The house was neat, the lawn freshly trimmed, curtains open just enough to let sunlight in, a picture-perfect home. I rang the doorbell. Jason opened it. Clara, he said, warmly, flashing that familiar polished smile. What a nice surprise. There it was again, that performance. Hi, Jason, I said, forcing a smile of my own. I was in the neighborhood. Of course you were. He replied smoothly, stepping aside. Come in. Emily was in the kitchen when I walked in. She turned when she heard my voice, and for a split second, something flickered across her face. Relief. Then it disappeared. Mom, she said, wiping her hands on a towel. You didn't have to bring anything. It's just a book, I said, gently holding it up, for Ethan. At the sound of his name, Ethan appeared from the hallway. Grandma. He said, his face lighting up more than I had seen in weeks. I knelt down and handed him the book. I thought you might like this one. He took it carefully, like it was something precious. Thank you, he said quietly. Why don't you go start your homework before dinner, Jason said casually from behind us. Ethan's shoulders tensed, almost imperceptibly. Okay, he murmured and disappeared back down the hall. I watched him go, a heavy feeling settling in my chest. We sat in the living room. Jason took the lead in the conversation immediately. So, Clara, how's retirement treating you? He asked. It's quieter, I said. I imagine he replied with a chuckle. Emily says you've been keeping busy, though. I glanced at Emily. She gave a small nod. Yeah, Mom's always doing something, but she didn't elaborate, didn't offer anything of her own. Jason leaned forward slightly. We've actually been talking a lot about the future lately. Financial planning, long-term stability, you know how important that is. There it was again. Money, planning, control. That's good, I said evenly, as long as you're both on the same page. Of course we are, Jason replied smoothly. I looked at Emily. Right, I asked gently. She hesitated, just for a second, then she nodded. Yes, of course, but her hands were clasped tightly in her lap. A few minutes later, I asked to use the bathroom. Emily stood up immediately. I'll show you. Jason didn't object. As soon as we stepped into the hallway, Emily lowered her voice. You didn't have to come, she said quickly. I mean, I appreciate it, but I wanted to see you, I said softly. She swallowed. I'm fine, Mom, really. I reached out and touched her arm. You don't look fine. For a moment, her eyes met mine. And in that moment, I saw it. Fear. Then she pulled away slightly. I just need to get through this week, she said. That's all. Get through what I asked. But before she could answer, Jason's voice called from the living room. Everything okay out there? Emily straightened immediately. Yes, she called back, her voice suddenly brighter. Just showing Mom where the bathroom is. I didn't miss the shift, and neither did she. After I used the bathroom, I passed through the kitchen on my way back. That's when I saw it. A stack of unopened mail tucked into a drawer that hadn't been fully closed. Bills. Official-looking envelopes. Some of them addressed to Emily. Why weren't they opened? Why were they hidden? I closed the drawer quietly and returned to the living room, my mind racing. Not long after, I stood to leave. I should get going, I said. I don't want to keep you. Jason walked me to the door, still smiling. Always a pleasure, Clara, he said. Emily followed behind him, silent. As I stepped outside, I heard quick footsteps behind me. Grandma. I turned. Ethan was standing there, clutching the book I had given him. I forgot to say thank you properly, he said. You already did, I said gently. He hesitated. Then quickly he stepped forward and hugged me. It was tight, urgent, and before he pulled away, I felt something slip into my hand, a folded piece of paper. I didn't react. I just squeezed his shoulder gently. I love you, I said. I love you too, he whispered. Then he turned and ran back inside. I didn't open the note until I was back in my car. My hands were shaking as I unfolded it. The handwriting was small, uneven, childlike. Please don't leave Mom alone with Dad when he's mad. I stared at the words, my vision blurring. That was it. That was all it took. Whatever doubt I had left, it was gone. This wasn't just in my head. This wasn't just stress. Something was very, very wrong in that house. And now I knew I couldn't walk away. I sat in my car for a long time after reading Ethan's note. The engine was off. The house behind me was quiet again, as if nothing had happened. As if that small, desperate message hadn't just changed everything. Please don't leave Mom alone with Dad when he's mad. The words echoed in my mind over and over, louder than anything Jason had said on that recording. Because children don't invent fear like that. They learn it. I folded the note carefully and placed it in my purse. My hands steadier now, not because I felt calm, but because something inside me had shifted. Doubt had turned into certainty, and certainty came with responsibility. I drove home in silence, my thoughts moving faster than the road beneath me. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I already knew what I had to do next. I couldn't rely on instinct alone anymore. I needed clarity, proof, understanding. That night, I waited until the house was completely quiet. No television, no background noise, just the faint hum of the refrigerator and the ticking clock on the wall. I sat at my kitchen table, put on a pair of headphones, and opened the recording again. This time, I wasn't just listening. I was studying. Every pause, every shift in tone, every word. Jason's voice came through low and controlled. "Yeah, I've got it handled. She trusts me completely." A pause. No, she won't question it. She never does. My chest tightened. Then came the part I already knew. She still doesn't suspect anything. I held my breath. Once the refinance goes through, I froze. Refinance. That wasn't vague anymore. That was specific. That was real. I leaned closer as if that might somehow make the audio clearer. And once I have the medical authorization in place, my hand flew to my mouth. Medical authorization. I can move fast, faster than she'll even understand what's happening. The recording crackled slightly as if the wind had shifted. By the time anyone figures it out, it'll already be done. Silence. Then the faint sound of footsteps, and the recording ended. I pulled the headphones off slowly, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Medical authorization, refinance, move fast, done before anyone figures it out. I stood up abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. "No," I whispered. No. But there it was, clearer than ever. This wasn't about work. This wasn't about clients. This was about Emily, about my daughter. I began pacing the kitchen, my mind racing to catch up with what I had just heard. Refinance meant the house. That meant money, debt, or leverage. But medical authorization, that was something else entirely. That meant control. The kind of control that allowed one person to make decisions for another. Decisions about treatment, about care, about capacity. My stomach turned. Why would Jason need that unless he was trying to prove that Emily couldn't make decisions for herself? The thought hit me like ice water. I stopped in the middle of the room. Dear God, I grabbed the back of the chair to steady myself. Could he really be trying to make her look unstable, to position himself as the one in charge? I thought back to what Emily had said months ago. I've just been so forgetful lately. At the time, I had brushed it off. Everyone gets tired. Everyone forgets things. But now I wondered where that idea had come from. Had she really been forgetting things, or had someone been telling her she was? I felt a deep rising anger in my chest, slow, controlled, but undeniable. This wasn't just manipulation. This was something darker, something calculated. I turned and grabbed my phone again. There was only one person I trusted to confirm what I was beginning to understand. Linda, she answered on the second ring. Clara. I listened to it again, I said immediately, my voice tight. All of it, carefully. I heard her shift, as if sitting up straighter. Tell me what you heard. He mentioned a refinance, I said, and medical authorization. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. That's not good, she said quietly. No, I agreed. It's not. I began pacing again, the phone pressed tightly to my ear. What does that mean, Linda, legally? She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was slower, measured. It means she said that if he's able to obtain the right documentation, he could position himself to make decisions on her behalf. My chest tightened, even if she doesn't want him to. It depends on how it's structured, Linda replied. If she signs something willingly without fully understanding it, it can be very difficult to undo. I closed my eyes. He said she doesn't suspect anything. I heard you, Linda said gently, and that's the part that concerns me most. I swallowed hard. Could he make it look like she's not capable, I asked. Another pause. Yes, Linda said. In some cases, people create a paper trail. Small things at first, missed appointments, emotional distress, inconsistent decisions, enough to suggest instability if challenged. My legs felt weak. I sank into the chair. He's been telling her she's tired, I said slowly. Overwhelmed, forgetful. Linda didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Linda, I whispered, I think he's setting her up. I think you might be right, she said. Silence stretched between us. Then she spoke again, more firmly. Clara, listen to me. Do not confront him. Not yet. I wasn't planning to, I said quickly. Good. Because if he's doing what we think he's doing, confrontation could make him escalate. Or worse, he could accelerate whatever plan he has. I gripped the phone tighter. So what do I do? You observe, she said. You document. You gather information. Quietly. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Can you get access to any documents Emily has signed, she asked. I don't know, I admitted, but I can try. Good, Linda said. And Clara? Yes. Make sure Emily has a way to reach you that he can't control. A separate phone if possible. Or at least a code word, something she can say if she's in trouble. My throat tightened. I didn't think it was that serious, I said softly. It might be, Linda replied. That was enough. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing. Everything felt different now. Sharper, more dangerous. I wasn't just worried anymore, I was aware, and awareness came with a heavy, undeniable truth. My daughter was in a situation she might not even fully understand, and my grandson, he already did. I reached into my purse and pulled out Ethan's note again. Please don't leave Mom alone with Dad when he's mad. I smoothed the paper gently with my fingers. I won't, I whispered. Then I folded it back up, placed it carefully on the table, and looked around my quiet house. For years, I had believed that the worst dangers came loudly through shouting, through visible harm, through obvious cruelty. But now I understood something I wished I had learned sooner. Sometimes the most dangerous things happen quietly, behind closed doors, in calm voices, with smiles and paperwork. I took a deep breath. Okay, Clara, I said to myself. This is where you stop being afraid. I reached for my notebook and a pen. If I was going to protect my family, I needed to start writing everything down. Every detail, every suspicion, every piece of truth, because whatever Jason was planning, I was going to be ready. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in days. Fear was still there. It sat heavy in my chest, but it no longer paralyzed me. It sharpened me. I made coffee, opened my notebook, and began writing everything down. Dates, conversations, small details I had ignored before. The way Emily hesitated before answering simple questions. The way Jason redirected every discussion. Ethan's silence, the hidden mail, the recording. By the time I finished, I had 3 full pages, and a growing sense that I had only scratched the surface. If Jason was planning something involving refinance and medical authority, then there had to be a paper trail. There were always records. Transactions, filings, I just had to find them. That afternoon, I sat at my computer and pulled up the county property records website. I hadn't done this in years, but it wasn't difficult. Everything was public if you knew where to look. I typed in their address. It took a few seconds to load. Then the information appeared. Ownership, Jason Carter and Emily Carter. That part was expected. But below that, recent activity. My eyes scanned the screen. There it was. A filing from just 3 weeks ago. Mortgage refinance application. Pending. My breath caught. 3 weeks ago, Emily hadn't mentioned anything about refinancing the house. Not once. I clicked into the document summary. It didn't show full details, those required official access, but it confirmed enough. The process had been initiated, which meant paperwork had already been signed, or at least partially signed. I leaned back in my chair, my heart pounding. Once the refinance goes through, his words echoed again in my head. This was real. This was already in motion. I picked up my phone and stared at Emily's contact for a long time. Should I ask her directly? No. Linda had been clear. Not yet. If Emily didn't even realize what she had signed, asking her outright could confuse her or worse. Alert Jason if she mentioned it. I needed to see for myself. 2 days later, I created an opportunity. I called Emily in the late afternoon. "Hey, sweetheart," I said casually. "I was thinking about that little cafe we used to go to on Maple Street. Do you remember?" She hesitated. "Yeah, I remember. Why don't we go tomorrow morning, just the two of us?" Another pause. "I don't know if I can," she said. "Jason has been wanting us to Emily," I interrupted gently but firmly. "Just an hour." Silence. Then a quiet exhale. "Okay," she said. 1 hour. Good." I replied, keeping my tone light. "I'll pick you up at 9. The next morning, I arrived a few minutes early. When Emily opened the door, I felt that same tightening in my chest. She looked thinner, paler, like someone carrying a weight she couldn't put down. "Hi, Mom," she said softly. "Hi, sweetheart." Jason appeared behind her almost immediately. "Coffee date?" He asked with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Yes," I said evenly. "Just a little mother-daughter time." "Of course," he replied smoothly. "Emily deserves a break." Emily glanced at him quickly. "I'll be back soon," she said. "No rush." Jason said his tone easy, but something about it felt watchful. I didn't say anything else. We left. For the first 10 minutes of the drive, Emily barely spoke. She stared out the window, her hands folded tightly in her lap. I didn't push. I had learned over years of working with children that silence sometimes said more than questions ever could. Finally, she spoke. "I haven't been there in a long time," she said quietly. "The cafe, I asked." She nodded. "We used to go all the time," I said. I know she whispered. When we sat down at the cafe, something shifted. It wasn't immediate, but slowly as the familiar smells of coffee and baked bread filled the air, I saw her shoulders relax just a little. We ordered drinks, made small talk, waited. Then gently I steered the conversation. "So," I said, stirring my coffee, "Jason mentioned you two have been doing a lot of financial planning lately." Emily stiffened. "Yeah," she said carefully, "just normal stuff, like what I asked lightly." She hesitated. "Budgeting, long-term plans, the house." I watched her closely. "The house," I repeated. She nodded. "Just making sure everything is secure. Secure how I asked." Her fingers tightened around her cup. "I don't know all the details," she admitted. "Jason handles most of that." There it was. I kept my voice calm. "Did you sign anything recently?" Her eyes flickered. "Yes," she said slowly. "Some paperwork." "What kind of paperwork? I'm not sure exactly," she said. "Jason said it was just routine. Something about adjusting the mortgage." My heart sank. "And you didn't read it?" I asked gently. She looked down. "I tried," she said, "but it was a lot. Legal language." He explained it. "And you trust him?" I said softly. She nodded. "I do," she said. But there was something in her voice that didn't match the words. Doubt. Small but there. I leaned forward slightly. "Emily." I said, "Has Jason ever asked you to sign anything related to your health medical decisions?" Her head snapped up. "What? No. Well," she frowned. There was something she said slowly. "A while ago. After that panic episode I had, I felt my pulse quicken." "What kind of something?" He said it was just a precaution, she said, in case anything ever happened to me, so he could make decisions if I couldn't. Medical authorization. I kept my face neutral even as alarm bells rang in my head. "Did you understand what you were signing?" I asked. She hesitated again. "I think so," she said. "I mean, he explained it." "Emily," I said gently, "did you read it yourself?" Her silence was answer enough. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The noise of the cafe faded into the background. All I could hear was my own heartbeat and Jason's voice in my memory. "Once I have the medical authorization in place," I reached across the table and placed my hand over hers. "Sweetheart," I said softly, "I need you to listen to me very carefully." She looked up at me, her eyes uncertain. "What is it?" she asked. I took a slow breath. "I think Jason may be making decisions without fully telling you everything." Her face changed instantly. "No," she said quickly. "He wouldn't." "I'm not saying he's doing something illegal," I interrupted gently, "but I am saying you need to understand exactly what you've signed." She pulled her hand back slightly. "Mom, you're overthinking this," she said, her voice rising just a little. "He's my husband, I know," I said, "and I want to believe that too." "Then why are you asking me this?" she demanded. "Because I heard him. Because your son is afraid. Because something is wrong." But I couldn't say any of that. Not yet. Instead, I softened my voice. "Because I love you," I said simply, "and because I've seen people sign things they didn't fully understand and regret it later." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she looked away. "I'm just tired, Mom," she said quietly. "Everything feels overwhelming lately." There it was again. That word, overwhelming, a narrative, one I was starting to recognize. I nodded slowly. "I understand," I said. But inside, I knew something she didn't. This wasn't just stress. This was something being built around her, quietly, carefully, and unless I moved faster, it might soon be too late to stop it. That afternoon, after I dropped Emily back at the house, I didn't go home right away. I parked 2 streets over and sat in my car staring at nothing, letting the weight of everything settle into something I could actually act on. Emily's words kept replaying in my head. "I don't know all the details. Jason handles most of that. He explained it. I'm just overwhelmed." It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Like someone repeating something they had been told too many times. Like someone slowly learning to doubt their own understanding. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. "No," I whispered. "Not anymore." I pulled out my phone and called Linda. She picked up almost immediately. "Clara, I saw her," I said. "We talked." And she asked. "She signed refinance paperwork," I said, "and something medical. She doesn't fully understand either of them." There was a pause. "That confirms it," Linda said quietly. My chest tightened. "Confirms what?" "That Jason is building layered control," she replied. "Financial and medical. That's not accidental." I closed my eyes. "I was afraid you'd say that. Did she seem aware of anything?" Linda asked. "No," I said. "Not really. There's hesitation, doubt. But she still trusts him." "That's how it usually works," Linda said. "Control doesn't happen all at once. It's gradual. It feels normal while it's happening." I let out a slow breath. "What do we do now?" "We move carefully," she said. "And we bring in someone who can help you gather information without raising suspicion." I knew what she meant before she said it. "A private investigator," I said. "Yes," Linda replied. "Someone experienced, discreet." I hesitated. This was another line, another step deeper into something I couldn't undo. "Do you know someone?" I asked. "I do," she said. "Robert Mitchell, retired detective. I've worked with him before. He's careful, and more importantly, he understands cases like this, cases like this." The phrase sat heavy in my chest. "Okay," I said, "set it up." I met Rob Mitchell 2 days later. We chose a quiet diner on the edge of town, somewhere no one we knew would be likely to walk in. He was already there when I arrived, seated in a booth near the back. Mid-50s, solid build, calm eyes that seemed to take in everything without appearing to. "Mrs. Whitmore," he asked as I approached. "Clara, please," I said. "Rob," he replied, offering a firm handshake. We sat down. No small talk, no wasted time. Linda had already briefed him, but he wanted to hear it from me. So I told him everything. The dinner, the recording, the refinance, the medical authorization, Ethan's note. When I finished, he leaned back slightly, his expression thoughtful. "You've done the right thing so far," he said. I blinked. "I have?" "Yes," he said. "You didn't confront him. You observed. You gathered initial information. That's exactly what you should have done." Relief flickered through me, but it was brief. "What do you think he's doing?" I asked. Rob didn't answer immediately. Instead, he folded his hands on the table. "I think he said slowly that your son-in-law is creating a system where your daughter becomes dependent on him financially, legally, and psychologically." My stomach tightened. "That sounds calculated," I said. "It is," he replied. I swallowed. Why he met my eyes. "Control is one reason," he said, "but usually there's something else driving it." "Like what money?" he said simply. I nodded. I checked the property records. "The house is being refinanced." "That's a piece of it," Rob said. I'll look into his financial background, debts, liabilities, anything that might explain urgency. Urgency. I can move fast. What about the medical authorization, I asked. That concerns me more, he said. Why? Because financial control can be challenged, he explained. But if he can establish that she's not capable of making decisions, at least temporarily, that gives him leverage. A cold wave passed through me. You mean he could make decisions for her? Yes, Rob said, depending on what she signed and how it's structured. I stared down at my coffee, suddenly unable to look at him. And if she doesn't realize what she signed, that's where it gets complicated, he said. Legally, it depends on whether it can be proven she didn't understand, but practically, he paused. Practically, he gains time and control. I felt my chest tighten again. Time, control. Those were exactly the things Jason seemed to be positioning himself for. What do we do? I asked quietly. Rob leaned forward slightly. We build a timeline, he said. We document everything. We verify what's been signed, what's been filed, and what he's doing behind the scenes. And Emily, I asked. We protect her, he said, but we don't tip him off. I nodded slowly. That's the part I'm afraid of, I admitted. If he realizes we're onto him, he may escalate, Rob said calmly. The word hung in the air. Escalate. What does that mean, I asked. It means he might push whatever plan he has faster, he said, or tighten control, or isolate her further. My hands clenched in my lap. And Ethan? I asked. Rob's expression softened slightly. Children usually see more than adults think, he said. His note tells me he's already aware something isn't right. I nodded, my throat tightening. He's scared, I said. Yes, Rob replied, and that's why we need to move carefully but steadily. We spent the next hour mapping out a plan. Rob would begin a background check on Jason financial records, professional history, any signs of instability or hidden debt. Linda would prepare legal contingencies, ways to protect Emily if we needed to act quickly. And me, I would keep doing what I had already started, observing, listening, staying close to Emily without raising suspicion. Before we left, Rob said something that stayed with me. Clara, he said, his tone serious but steady. People like your son-in-law rely on one thing above all else. What's that? I asked. Time, he said. They count on no one noticing until it's too late. I nodded slowly. Well, I said he's already lost that advantage. A faint, almost approving smile crossed Rob's face. Good, he said. That night I sat at my kitchen table again, my notebook open in front of me. But this time I wasn't just writing down fears. I was building something, a record, a defense, a way to fight back. I wrote down everything Rob had said, everything Linda had advised, every detail from the past few days. And then, at the top of a new page, I wrote one sentence: protect Emily and Ethan, no matter what. I stared at those words for a long moment. Then I underlined them, because now more than ever, I understood something I hadn't fully grasped before. This wasn't just about uncovering the truth. This was about stopping something before it reached its final step. And whatever Jason was planning, I had a feeling he wasn't finished yet. Not even close. 3 days passed without anything unusual. And somehow, that made everything feel worse. Because when you're waiting for something dangerous to happen, silence doesn't feel like peace. It feels like pressure building behind a locked door. I kept in touch with Emily, but lightly. Short messages, casual check-ins, nothing that would raise suspicion. How was your shift? Did Ethan enjoy the book, thinking of you? Her replies were always polite, warm even, but never open, never real. And Jason was always somewhere in the background. I could feel it. On the 4th day, I decided to take a risk, a small one. I called Emily in the late morning. Hey, sweetheart, I said, keeping my tone gentle. Are you working today? No, she said. I'm off. Good. I replied. I was thinking about stopping by just for a bit. There was a pause. Then she said quietly, Jason's at the office. My heart skipped. Then I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said. When I arrived, she opened the door quickly, almost like she had been waiting behind it. Hi, she said, stepping aside to let me in. Hi, honey. The house felt different, still neat, still quiet, but lighter somehow, like the air itself wasn't being watched. We sat in the kitchen. No television, no forced conversation, just the soft hum of the refrigerator and the sound of two people who didn't know where to begin. I decided not to circle around it this time. "Emily," I said gently, "I need to talk to you about something important." She stiffened immediately. "What is it?" she asked. I took a slow breath. "I heard something the other night," I said, "at dinner." Her eyes flickered. "What do you mean?" I stepped outside. I continued, "And I heard Jason on the phone." Her expression changed. Not confusion, not disbelief, fear. "I didn't mean to listen," I said quickly, but something about the way he was speaking, it didn't feel right. She swallowed hard. "What did he say?" She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I chose my words carefully. I didn't hear everything I said, but I heard enough to know he was talking about paperwork, signatures, and that you didn't suspect anything. The color drained from her face. For a moment she didn't move, didn't breathe, then she looked down at her hands. "I knew it," she whispered. My heart tightened. "You knew what I asked gently." "That something wasn't right," she said. I couldn't explain it." She pressed her fingers to her temples like she was trying to hold her thoughts together. "He's been asking me to sign things for months," she continued. "At first it was normal, insurance updates, account changes. But lately," she shook her head, "it's been constant." I leaned forward slightly. "Did you question it?" I asked. "I tried," she said, "but every time I did, he'd explain it so calmly, so confidently, like I was the one making it complicated." That familiar phrase again, turning doubt inward, making her question herself. "What about the medical forms?" I asked softly. Her head snapped up. "How do you know about that?" "I heard him mention it," I said. She stared at me for a long moment. Then her shoulders slumped. "I signed something," she admitted. After I had that panic attack a few months ago." I nodded, encouraging her to continue. "He said it was just a precaution," she said, "in case something like that happened again, so he could help make decisions." "Did you read it?" I asked. She hesitated. "I tried," she said, "but I didn't understand all of it, and he kept saying it was standard, that everyone does it." I felt a quiet anger rise in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. "Emily," I said gently, "has he ever suggested that you're not capable of making decisions?" Her eyes filled with tears. "He doesn't say it like that," she whispered, "but sometimes he'll say things like, 'You've been so overwhelmed lately,' or 'You're not thinking clearly.'" I closed my eyes briefly. There it was, the pattern. "He says it so kindly," she continued, "like he's worried about me, like he's trying to help." "That's how it works," I said softly. She looked at me. "What do you mean?" I reached across the table and took her hand. "I mean, that control doesn't always look like control," I said. "Sometimes it looks like concern." Her grip tightened around mine. "I feel like I'm losing myself," she admitted, "like I can't trust my own thoughts anymore." My heart broke a little at those words. "You're not losing yourself," I said firmly. "You're being made to feel that way." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I didn't want to believe that," she said. "I know," I replied, "because believing it means everything changes." She nodded. Silence filled the room again, but this time it felt different. Not empty, heavy, real. After a moment she spoke again. "There's something else," she said. I looked at her. "What is it?" She hesitated, then stood up and walked over to a drawer in the kitchen, the same drawer I had noticed before. She opened it slowly. Inside was a stack of documents. "I started keeping copies," she said quietly, "just in case." A flicker of hope stirred inside me. "That was smart," I said. She handed me a few pages. I scanned them quickly. Mortgage paperwork, refinance agreements, and something else. Legal language, dense, carefully worded. My stomach tightened. "This is serious," I said. "I thought so," she whispered. "Does he know you have these?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, good," I said. "Keep it that way." She nodded, then she looked at me, her expression fragile but determined. "What do I do, Mom?" That question simple, terrifying. I took a deep breath. "You don't confront him," I said. "Not yet." Her shoulders tensed. "Why not?" "Because we need to understand exactly what he's done," I explained. "And we need to be prepared before he realizes you're pulling away." She swallowed. "Prepared for what?" I hesitated, because the truth was heavy. "Prepared to protect yourself," I said. "And Ethan." At the mention of his name, her expression shifted, stronger, more focused. "He's scared," she said quietly. "I know," I replied. She wiped her eyes and straightened slightly. "Okay," she said. "Then we do this the right way." I nodded. Yes, I said, we do. Before I left, I gave her one more piece of advice. If anything feels wrong, I said, call me, no matter what time. She nodded. I will. And Emily, I added, if he ever pushes you to sign something again, don't. She hesitated. What do I tell him? I met her eyes. Tell him you want time to read it. She nodded slowly. Okay. As I walked to the door, I felt something I hadn't felt since this began. Not relief, but progress. For the first time, Emily wasn't in the dark anymore. And that meant Jason had just lost something important. Control. He just didn't know it yet. The moment I stepped out of the house, I didn't let myself relax. Because if there was one thing I had learned in the past week, it was this. Danger doesn't disappear just because you finally see it. Sometimes that's when it becomes more dangerous. I got into my car and locked the doors, my hands gripping the steering wheel for a second longer than necessary. I took a slow breath, steadying myself. Emily knew now, not everything but enough, and that changed the entire situation. Because Jason's control had depended on one thing above all else, her not questioning him. Now she would. And men like Jason, they noticed that. I drove straight home and called Linda as soon as I walked through the door. She knows I said without preamble. There was a pause. How much, Linda asked. Enough to be scared, I said. Enough to start questioning him. That's good, she replied. But it also means we need to move faster. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. She has copies of some documents, I added. Refinance papers, legal forms. I didn't have time to go through everything. Bring them to me, Linda said immediately. As soon as you can. I need to review exactly what he's had her sign. I will, I said. But Linda, there's something else. Go on. He's been telling her she's overwhelmed, that she's not thinking clearly. Linda exhaled slowly. That's consistent, she said. He's shaping a narrative. If he ever needs to justify taking control, he already has the groundwork. My stomach tightened. He's been doing this for months, I said. Yes, she replied, and that means he's invested in the outcome. I closed my eyes. Which means he won't just walk away, I whispered. No, Linda said quietly. He won't. That night I couldn't stop thinking about Emily's face when she said it. I feel like I'm losing myself. That wasn't just fear. That was erosion. The slow, invisible kind that happens when someone chips away at your confidence piece by piece until you don't trust your own judgment anymore. And that realization brought something else with it. Anger, not loud, not explosive, but deep, controlled, the kind that doesn't burn out quickly, the kind that fuels action. The next morning, I met Emily again. This time she came to my house, alone. When I opened the door, I could see the difference immediately. She was still tired, still fragile, but there was something new in her eyes. Awareness. Hi, she said softly. Hi, sweetheart, I replied, pulling her into a hug. She held on longer than usual, like she needed it, like she hadn't realized how much. We sat at the kitchen table and she placed a folder in front of me. I brought everything I could find, she said. I opened it carefully. Inside were copies of documents, some neatly organized, others folded hastily. Mortgage paperwork, bank statements, forms with dense legal language, and then there it was, a document labeled Durable Medical Power of Attorney. My breath caught. Emily, I said quietly. I signed that, she said, 2 months ago. I scanned the page. Jason's name was listed clearly. Primary decision maker, in the event of incapacity. The words blurred for a second as a wave of anger washed over me. Did you understand this when you signed it? I asked. She shook her head slowly. He said it was just in case, she whispered, that it was responsible. I forced myself to stay calm. Did anyone else explain it to you, a lawyer, a doctor? No, she said, that was enough. I set the document down carefully and looked at her. Emily, this gives him significant authority, I said. If he can convince someone that you're not capable of making decisions even temporarily, he can step in. Her face went pale. But I am capable, she said quickly. I know that, I said gently, but this isn't about truth. It's about perception and paperwork. She stared at the document, her hands trembling slightly. I didn't know, she whispered. I know, I said. That's how these things work. We spent the next hour going through everything, line by line, page by page. Some of it was harmless, routine, but other parts weren't. There were clauses that shifted financial control, language that gave Jason increasing access to joint accounts, and references to restructuring ownership tied to the refinance. By the time we finished, the room felt heavier, like the truth had weight, and it was sitting right between us. "There's more," Emily said quietly. I looked up. "What?" She hesitated. Then she took a deep breath. "He's been checking on me." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean he'll ask me the same question twice?" she said. "Like he's testing me. And if I don't answer exactly the same way, he'll say things like, 'See, you're not remembering clearly.'" A cold chill ran through me, and at first she continued, "I thought maybe he was right. Maybe I was forgetting things." I shook my head. "No," I said firmly. "He's creating doubt, on purpose." She nodded slowly. "I see that now," she said, "but it didn't feel that way before." "Of course it didn't," I said gently, "because he didn't want it to." She leaned back in her chair, her expression distant. "There were other things too," she said. "He didn't want me seeing certain friends anymore, said they were a bad influence, that they stressed me out. Isolation, another piece of the pattern, and money," I asked. She let out a small, bitter laugh. "I have to explain every purchase," she said, "even groceries sometimes." I felt that quiet anger rise again. "He calls it budgeting," she added, "but it doesn't feel like budgeting." "No," I said, "it's not." We sat in silence for a moment. Then she looked at me, her eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in a long time. Strength. "What do we do now?" she asked. The question was different this time. Not scared, ready. I took a deep breath. "We follow the plan," I said, carefully. She nodded. "Okay, you don't confront him yet," I continued. "You don't let him know you're aware. You keep everything normal." "That's going to be hard," she admitted. "I know I said, but it's important." She nodded again. "I can do that. And if he asks you to sign anything else?" I asked. Her jaw tightened slightly. "I won't," she said. "Good," I replied. Before she left, I walked her to the door. She paused, her hand on the handle. "Mom," she said, "yes. What if he realizes?" she asked. "What if he knows something's changed? I met her eyes. Then you call me," I said immediately. She nodded. "I will. And Emily," I added, my voice firm but gentle, "you're not alone in this anymore." Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time they didn't fall. "Thank you," she whispered. After she left, I stood there for a long time. The house was quiet again, but it didn't feel the same as before, because now everything was out in the open. Not to the world, not to Jason, but to us. And that meant one thing. The balance had shifted. Slightly, but enough. Because for the first time since this began, Emily wasn't questioning herself anymore. She was questioning him. And that was something Jason would not be able to control for long. The next update came from Rob. It was early evening when my phone rang, and the moment I saw his name, something in my chest tightened. I stepped outside onto the back porch before answering, instinctively wanting privacy. "Clara," he said, his voice steady as always. "I have something." I didn't sit down. "What did you find?" I asked. A brief pause. "Your son-in-law isn't as financially stable as he appears," Rob said. I closed my eyes. I suspected that. "It's worse than that," he continued. "He's carrying significant personal debt, not just credit cards, private loans, short-term borrowing, some high-interest accounts." My grip on the phone tightened. "How much enough to put him under serious pressure?" Rob said. "And from what I can tell, he's been moving money around to keep it from showing." My stomach dropped. Moving money. How shifting between accounts, delaying payments, using new credit to cover old debt, Rob explained. "It's a pattern of someone trying to stay ahead of collapse." Collapse. That word echoed in my mind. "And the refinance?" I asked. "That fits," he said. "If he can access equity from the house that gives him immediate cash flow." "At Emily's expense?" I said quietly. "Yes," Rob replied. I turned and leaned against the porch railing, staring out into the fading light. "And the medical authorization?" I asked. "That's the part that concerns me most," he said. My chest tightened. "Why? Because financial desperation alone doesn't explain that," Rob said. "That suggests he's preparing for resistance." A chill ran down my spine. "Resistance," I repeated. "If Emily starts questioning things, he said he may need a way to override her or discredit her." I felt the world tilt slightly beneath me. "You think he would actually try to make her look unstable?" "I think he's already laying the groundwork," Rob replied. I swallowed hard. "He's been doing that," I said. "Telling her she's overwhelmed, Forgetful, testing her memory. That's consistent, Rob said. It creates a narrative, one he can use if needed. I pressed my free hand against my chest, trying to steady my breathing. And there's more, he added. My stomach tightened further. What? He's been making inquiries, Rob said, quiet ones, about what long-term care facilities, temporary evaluation programs, mental health assessments. For a moment I couldn't speak. The air felt thinner. He wouldn't, I whispered. He might, Rob said calmly, especially if he feels like he's losing control. I shook my head, even though he couldn't see me. No, I said, no, he wouldn't go that far. But even as I said it, I remembered Ethan's note. Please don't leave Mom alone with Dad when he's mad. And suddenly nothing felt impossible anymore. After I hung up, I stood there for a long time, staring into the dark. Everything had just shifted again. This wasn't just about manipulation, or control, or even money. This was about escalation. Jason wasn't just planning something. He was preparing for what would happen if his plan was challenged. And that made him far more dangerous than I had wanted to believe. I called Emily immediately. She picked up on the second ring. Mom, are you alone? I asked. Yes, she said. Jason's not home yet? Good, I said. I need you to listen to me carefully. There was a pause. What is it? I took a deep breath. I spoke to Rob, I said. He's been looking into Jason's finances. Silence. Then quietly, and he's in serious debt, I said. More than you know. I could hear her breathing change. That doesn't make sense, she said. He always said we were fine. I know, I replied, but that's not the reality. Another pause. And the refinance, she asked. It's part of it, I said. He needs access to money quickly. She didn't respond right away. When she did, her voice was smaller. So that's what this is about, partly, I said. But Emily, there's something else. I hesitated. Because this was the part that would change everything. What she asked. He's been asking about medical evaluations, I said carefully, facilities, assessments. The silence on the other end was immediate, heavy. What do you mean, she asked finally. I mean, I said slowly, that if he convinces someone you're not stable temporarily or otherwise, he could use that to gain control. Her breath caught. No, she said. No, he wouldn't do that. I closed my eyes. I hope you're right, I said softly. But we can't ignore the possibility. I'm not unstable, she said quickly. I had one panic attack months ago, just one. I know that, I said. But this isn't about truth. It's about what he can make look believable. Her voice trembled. He's been asking me the same questions over and over, she said. Like he's testing me. I know, I said gently. And sometimes, she continued, he'll say things like, you don't remember saying that even when I'm sure I didn't. Gaslighting, deliberate, calculated. Emily, I said, my voice firm now. You need to understand something. What? This is not random, I said. This is a pattern, and it's leading somewhere. I could hear her breathing unevenly. So what do I do? She asked. I took a deep breath. You stay calm, I said. You don't confront him. Not yet. That's what you said before, she whispered. But this feels different. It is different, I admitted, which is why you have to be even more careful. There was a long pause. Then she said something that made my chest tighten. I'm scared, Mom. I closed my eyes. I know, I said softly. But you're not alone. We talked for another 20 minutes about small things that were actually big things, where she kept her documents, who she could trust, what she should do if Jason pushed her to sign something again. And then, what if he tries to take me somewhere, she asked suddenly. The question hit me like a physical blow. What do you mean, I asked. Like, to get evaluated, she said. He's mentioned therapy before, said it might help me clear my head. My grip on the phone tightened. Listen to me, I said firmly. You do not go anywhere you're not comfortable with. Not alone, not without understanding exactly what it is. Okay, she said. And if he pressures you, I asked. I'll say no, she replied. Good, I said, and then you call me. I will. After we hung up, I stood in my kitchen staring at the wall. The house felt too quiet, too still. Like something was waiting. And for the first time since this began, a thought crossed my mind that I hadn't allowed myself to fully consider before. What if we're already too late? I pushed it away immediately. No, we weren't too late. Not yet. Because now we knew, and knowledge was power. but it also came with urgency, because whatever Jason was planning, he wasn't going to wait forever. And if Rob was right, if Jason felt like he was losing control, then the next move would come soon. I didn't sleep that night either, but this time it wasn't uncertainty keeping me awake, it was anticipation. Rob's words echoed in my mind over and over. If he feels like he's losing control, he may move faster. That thought settled into something sharp and urgent. We didn't just need to be careful anymore. We needed to be ready. The next morning I called Linda first. "He's under pressure," I said as soon as she answered. "Financially, and he's preparing for resistance." "I expected as much," she replied calmly, "which means we move to the next phase." "What does that look like?" I asked. "Preparation," she said, "not reaction." I leaned against the kitchen counter, gripping the edge. "Tell me." "Emily needs a safe exit plan," Linda said, "before anything escalates." My chest tightened. "You mean leaving?" "Yes," she said. "Even if she doesn't use it immediately, she needs the option. Somewhere she can go quickly with Ethan if necessary." I nodded slowly. "I can arrange that," I said. "She can stay here," good Linda replied. "But we also need to think beyond that." "Like what documents?" she said. "Identification, financial records, anything tied to Ethan, school records, medical files. She needs copies of everything he might try to control." I grabbed my notebook and started writing. "Okay," I said. "What else communication?" Linda continued. "If he's monitoring her phone or even just checking it occasionally, she needs a backup way to contact you." I paused. "I can get her a second phone," I said. "Do it," Linda replied. "And Clara?" "Yes, if things escalate, we may need to act quickly. That means I'll start preparing legal protections now." "Like what?" I asked. "Emergency filings," she said. "Protective measures. The kind that can be put in place fast if we need them." I swallowed hard. This was real. This was happening. "Okay," I said quietly. After the call, I sat at the table for a moment, staring at the list I had written. It didn't look like much. A few bullet points, a few practical steps, but I knew what it really was. A plan to get my daughter out, safely. I called Emily later that afternoon. She answered quickly. "Mom, are you okay?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "He's at work." "Good," I replied. "We need to talk about the next steps." There was a pause. "Okay." I took a deep breath. "We're going to prepare," I said quietly, without him knowing, for what she asked. "In case you need to leave," I said, silence. Then softly, "Leave, yes," I said gently. "I'm not saying you have to, but you need the option." Her breathing became uneven. "I never thought it would come to that," she whispered. "I know," I said. "But we don't wait until it's too late to have a plan." Another pause. Then she said, "Okay." There was fear in her voice. But there was also something else. Resolve. We spent the next half hour going through everything. First, I said you gather important documents. Birth certificates, social security cards, Ethan's school records. "I can do that," she said. Second, I continued, anything financial. Bank statements, copies of what you've already signed. "Okay." Third, I said you keep them somewhere safe, not in the house if possible. She hesitated. "Where would I put them?" "With me," I said. "Or somewhere he can't access." "Okay," she repeated. "And Emily." I added, "You don't tell him you're doing any of this." "I won't," she said. I hesitated before bringing up the next part. "There's something else," I said. "Would I want you to have a second phone?" She went quiet. "Why?" she asked. "In case you need to call me and can't use your regular one," I said. "You think he's monitoring me?" she asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "But I don't want to take that chance." She was silent for a moment. Then she said, "Okay." "I'll get it today," I said. Later that evening, I drove to a small electronics store across town. Nothing fancy, just a simple prepaid phone, something untraceable, something quiet. As I paid for it, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of me still couldn't believe this was my life now. Buying a secret phone for my daughter, planning an exit strategy, preparing for something that felt more like a crisis than a family problem. But another part of me, the stronger part, knew exactly why I was doing it, because waiting had already cost us too much. The next day, I met Emily in a grocery store parking lot. Neutral ground, no suspicion. She got into my car quickly, glancing around before closing the door. "I feel like I'm doing something wrong," she said immediately. "You're protecting yourself," I corrected gently. I handed her the phone. "This stays hidden," I said. "Only use it if you need to." She took it carefully like it was something fragile. "Okay," she said. We sat there for a moment. Then she said something that made my chest tighten. "He's been asking questions." What kind of questions, I asked. Where I've been, who I've talked to, why I've been different. I felt a chill run through me. "What did you say?" I asked. "I told him I've just been tired," she said. "Good," I replied. "Keep it that way." She nodded. "But he's watching me more," she added quietly. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. "He's noticing," I said. "Yes." We both knew what that meant. The timeline was shrinking. Before she got out of the car, I looked at her carefully. "Emily," I said, "if anything feels wrong, anything at all, you call me. Immediately." "I will," she said. "And if he pushes you to sign something again, I say no," she replied. "Good." She reached for the door, then paused. "Mom." "Yes." What if he doesn't take no for an answer? The question hung in the air between us. Heavy, real. I met her eyes. "Then we move," I said. She swallowed. "Okay." That night, I sat in my living room staring at the quiet space around me. Everything was ready. The documents, the phone, the plan. All we were waiting for now was Jason's next move. And deep down, I knew something I couldn't ignore. It was coming. Soon. Because men like him don't let control slip away quietly. They fight for it. And when they do, that's when everything becomes dangerous. The call came just after 6:30 in the evening. I had just finished setting the table for a quiet dinner when my phone buzzed against the counter. I didn't even need to look at the screen. I felt it in my chest before I saw her name. Emily. I answered immediately. "Mom." Her voice was tight, breathless. "What's wrong?" I asked, already reaching for my keys. "He wants me to sign something," she said, "right now." My heart started pounding. "Is Ethan there?" I asked. "Yes, he's upstairs. And Jason?" "In the living room," she said. "He brought home papers. He says it's urgent. Something about taxes in the house." I closed my eyes for a second, steadying myself. "Listen to me," I said calmly. "What did you tell him?" I said I wanted to read it first, she replied. "He didn't like that." "Of course he didn't." "Good," I said. "That's exactly right. Don't sign anything." There was a pause. "He's getting impatient," she whispered. I grabbed my purse. "I'm coming over." I said. "No," she said quickly. "What if that makes it worse?" "It won't," I said firmly. "You're not alone anymore, remember?" Another pause. "Okay," she said. "Stay calm," I added. "I'll be there in 10 minutes." The drive felt longer than it should have. Every red light, every slow-moving car, every second felt like something was slipping through my fingers. By the time I pulled into their driveway, my heart was racing. The house looked the same as always, calm, quiet, normal, but I knew better now. I stepped out of the car and walked quickly to the front door. Before I could knock, it opened. Emily stood there, her face pale. "Hi, Mom," she said, her voice too steady. "Hi, sweetheart," I replied, matching her tone. We didn't say anything else. We didn't need to. Jason was in the living room, seated at the coffee table. A stack of papers lay neatly in front of him. He looked up as we walked in. "Clara," he said, surprise flickering across his face for just a moment before it disappeared behind that familiar smile. What a nice surprise. "I was in the neighborhood," I said evenly. "Of course you were," he replied. His eyes moved briefly to Emily, then back to me. "We were just going over some paperwork," he added casually. "Nothing exciting." I glanced at the papers. "Mind if I sit?" I asked. "Not at all," he said, though there was a subtle tension in his shoulders now. I took a seat across from him. Emily sat beside me, close. "What kind of paperwork?" I asked lightly. "Just some adjustments," Jason said, "related to the refinance and a few tax considerations." I nodded slowly. "Important things," I said. "Exactly," he replied. "Which is why I'd like to get them signed tonight." There it was. Pressure. Subtle, but firm. I turned to Emily. "Have you had a chance to read them?" I asked. She shook her head slightly. "Not yet." Jason leaned forward, his tone still calm but tighter now. "I've already explained everything," he said. "It's straightforward." "I'm sure it is," I said, "but there's no harm in taking a little time to review." His smile didn't falter, but his eyes did. "Just for a second, these are time-sensitive," he said. "Everything important usually is," I replied. Silence. The air shifted. Mom Emily said softly, "I just want to make sure I understand everything." Jason's head turned toward her. "Emily," he said, his voice still gentle. "We've been through this. You don't need to stress yourself out over details like this." My stomach tightened. There it was again. The narrative. "You've been overwhelmed lately," he continued. "Let me handle this." Emily didn't respond, and for the first time, she didn't agree. Jason noticed. I saw it in the way his posture changed, the way his fingers tightened slightly on the edge of the table. "I said I want to read it," Emily said quietly. The room went still. Jason blinked, once, slowly. "Of course," he said after a moment, "if that's what you need." But something in his tone had shifted. The warmth was thinner now, more controlled. Upstairs, I heard a faint sound. Footsteps. Ethan. He was listening. Jason stood up suddenly. "Why don't I get us something to drink?" he said. "Water is fine," I replied. "Of course," he said, and walked into the kitchen. The moment he was out of the room, Emily leaned toward me. "He's angry," she whispered. "I know," I said. "I can feel it," she added. "So can I?" I replied. "Did I make it worse?" she asked. "No," I said firmly. "You did exactly what you needed to do." She nodded, but her hands were shaking. Jason returned a moment later, carrying 3 glasses. He set them down carefully, too carefully. "Here we go," he said. "Thank you," I replied. We sat in silence for a moment, then Jason spoke again. "Emily," he said, his tone softer now, almost reassuring. "You know I'm doing this for us, right?" She didn't answer immediately. "I know," she said finally. But he prompted. She looked down at the papers. "I just want to understand," she said. Another pause. Then Jason laughed lightly. "Of course you do," he said. "You've always been thorough." But there was something off about the way he said it. Like it wasn't a compliment, like it was a correction. "Why don't you walk me through it again?" Emily asked. His eyes flicked to me, then back to her. "Sure," he said. He began explaining, calm, confident, polished. But this time I was listening differently, and so was Emily. Every word, every phrasing, every moment where he simplified something that shouldn't have been simple, where he skipped over details, where he redirected the conversation when it got too specific. I saw it, and for the first time, so did she. Halfway through, Ethan appeared at the top of the stairs. He didn't come down. He just stood there, watching. Jason noticed. "Ethan," he said, his tone suddenly sharper. "Go finish your homework." Ethan hesitated, then disappeared back upstairs, but not before his eyes met Emily's. Fear, clear, undeniable. Jason turned back to us. "Where were we?" he asked smoothly. But the moment had shifted. The control wasn't as clean anymore. There were cracks now, small, but visible. "I think I'd like to look this over tonight," Emily said. Jason's expression didn't change, but something in the room did. "I'd prefer to get it done now," he said. "I'm not comfortable signing it yet," she replied. Silence. Longer this time. He looked at her, really looked at her, as if trying to understand what had changed, and for a split second I saw it. Not anger, not yet, but calculation. "Okay," he said finally. "Too easily, take your time," but I knew that tone. That calm. That was not acceptance. That was adjustment. We stayed for another 10 minutes. Small talk, surface level, nothing real. Then I stood. "I should get going," I said. Emily stood with me. "I'll walk you out," she said. Jason didn't stop us, but his eyes followed us to the door. Outside, the air felt colder, sharper. Emily turned to me. "That was bad? Wasn't it?" she whispered. "Yes," I said honestly. She nodded. "I could feel it," she said. I placed my hands on her shoulders. "Listen to me," I said. "You did exactly what you needed to do." She swallowed. "But he knows something's different now," she said. "Yes," I replied. Her voice dropped even lower. "What happens next?" I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't soften the truth. "He's going to push harder," I said. She closed her eyes briefly. "Okay," she whispered. "And when he does," I added, "we'll be ready." She nodded. But as I walked back to my car, I couldn't shake the feeling in my chest, because I knew something she didn't fully understand yet. Tonight wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning of the moment Jason realized he was losing control. And people like him don't let that happen quietly. I barely made it home before my phone buzzed again. "Emily." This time I answered before it even finished ringing. "Mom," her voice was low, urgent. "I'm here," I said. "What happened?" There was a pause, like she was checking her surroundings. "He changed," she whispered. "The moment you left." My chest tightened. How I asked. "He didn't yell," she said quickly. "That's what scared me. He just got quiet." I closed my eyes. That was worse. "What did he say?" I asked. He asked me why I suddenly needed to read things carefully, she said. He kept looking at me like he was trying to figure something out. Did you say anything about me, I asked. No, she said. I told him I've just been stressed, that I want to feel more in control. Good, I said. That was the right answer. There was a pause. Then she added, he didn't believe me. Of course he didn't. Men like Jason didn't miss shifts like that, not after months of control. Where is he now, I asked. In the office, she said. He closed the door. Are you safe, I asked. Yes, she replied, but it doesn't feel normal. I took a deep breath. Listen to me, I said. This is exactly what we expected. He's adjusting. Adjusting to what she asked. To losing control, I said. Silence. Then very quietly, what do we do now? I didn't hesitate. We move forward, I said. The next morning, Linda came to my house. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. We sat at the kitchen table with Emily's documents spread out in front of us. She read everything carefully, slowly, methodically. I watched her face for any reaction, but Linda was good at what she did. She didn't react emotionally. She analyzed. After nearly 40 minutes, she set the papers down. Well, I asked. She folded her hands. He's been very thorough, she said. That wasn't what I wanted to hear. In what way, I asked. In creating a structure that benefits him, she replied. I felt my chest tighten. Explain. The refinance shifts access to equity, she said. The account adjustments increases control over shared finances. And the medical authorization? She paused. Gives him a pathway to make decisions if he can establish doubt about her capacity. I swallowed hard. So we're not imagining this, I said. No, Linda said firmly. You're not. A cold anger settled deeper inside me. Can we stop him, I asked. Yes, she said, but timing matters. How if we act too soon without enough evidence, he can deny everything she explained. If we wait too long, he may complete whatever he's planning. I nodded slowly. So we need to catch him in the middle, I said. Exactly, she replied. That afternoon, everything came to a head. Emily called again. This time her voice wasn't just tense, it was shaking. Mommy's doing it again, she said. My heart started pounding. What now? He brought the papers back out, she said. He says we can't delay anymore. Are you alone, I asked. No, she said. He's right here. I grabbed my keys. Put me on speaker, I said. There was a brief shuffle. Then I heard Jason's voice. Clara, he said smoothly. What a coincidence. Jason, I replied evenly. Emily said you had some paperwork to go over. Yes, he said. Time-sensitive documents. I was just explaining them. I'd like to hear that explanation, I said. There was a pause. Then he laughed lightly. Of course, he said. Though I'm not sure why that's necessary. Because I asked, I replied. Silence. The tone had shifted. I think we can handle this privately, Jason said finally. I replied. Another pause. Longer this time. Then Emily's voice cut in. I want her here, she said. My chest tightened. That was the first time she had said something like that, out loud, in front of him. Jason didn't respond immediately. When he did, his voice was still calm, but there was an edge now. Emily, he said, this is a simple process. You're making it more complicated than it needs to be. I don't understand it, she said. I've explained it, he replied. Not in a way that makes sense to me, she said. Silence. And then the mask cracked. Just a little. You've been very forgetful lately, Jason said quietly. My stomach turned. There it was, right in the open. I'm not forgetful, Emily said. Her voice trembled, but she didn't back down. You had a panic episode not that long ago, he continued. You said yourself you've been overwhelmed. That doesn't mean I can't understand paperwork, she said. I could hear the shift now. The tension building. This is exactly what I'm talking about, Jason said. You're getting emotional instead of focusing on facts. My grip tightened on the phone. Jason? I said sharply, that's enough. He went quiet. Then he laughed again, but this time there was no warmth in it. Clara, he said, I think you're overstepping. I think you're pushing her, I replied. And I think he said slowly that Emily needs support, not interference. There it was. The line. Clear, calculated. He wasn't just talking to me anymore. He was setting a narrative. Right there. In real time. Support doesn't mean control, I said, and concern doesn't mean manipulation. He shot back. Silence. Heavy, electric. Then Emily spoke. I'm not signing anything today, she said. The words landed like a stone. Firm, final. Jason didn't respond right away. When he did, his voice had changed. Completely. Cold. "Emily," he said, "you don't understand what you're risking." "I understand enough," she replied. "No," he said, "you don't." I could hear something in his tone now that hadn't been there before. Not just control, not just calculation, something darker. "You're making a mistake," he continued, "and when this creates problems later, don't say I didn't warn you." "I'm willing to take that risk," she said. Another silence. "Then you've always been like this," he said quietly. Emotional, reactive, difficult when things matter most. Emily didn't respond, but I could hear her breathing, shallow, fast. "Jason." I said, my voice steady but firm. "Stop." He ignored me. "I've tried to help you," he said to her. "I've tried to protect you, but you make it impossible." Something inside me snapped. "Protect her," I said sharply, "by pushing her to sign things she doesn't understand." Another silence. "Then I never said she didn't understand," he replied. But it was too late. We had all heard it, felt it, seen it. "Jason." I said, my voice low now. Controlled, I have a recording. The words hung in the air. Still. Deadly. What he said. "A recording," I repeated. "From the night of dinner." Silence. Complete. "Absolute. I heard you," I said, "talking about signatures. About her not suspecting anything. Nothing. Not a single sound. And then a shift. Subtle, but unmistakable. The moment he realized he was exposed. "You shouldn't be listening to private conversations," he said finally. His voice was different now. Not calm, not warm. Hard. "That depends on what those conversations are about," I replied. Another pause. Then he said something that changed everything. "I don't deal well with weakness," he said. The words were quiet, but sharp, cold, cruel. And upstairs I heard a sound, a door opening. Ethan, he had heard it. That was the moment everything broke. The illusion, the control, the careful mask he had worn for years, gone. And in its place, something real, something dangerous. And for the first time, there was no pretending anymore. For a moment after Jason's words, no one spoke. The silence was so complete, it felt like the house itself was holding its breath. "I don't deal well with weakness." The sentence hung in the air, heavy and irreversible, and then from upstairs I heard it clearly, a small broken sound. "Ethan." Emily heard it too. "Ethan," she said, her voice cracking as she turned toward the staircase. "It's okay, honey." But it wasn't okay. Nothing about this was okay anymore. Jason didn't move. He didn't even look upstairs. He just stood there, his expression unreadable now, as if something inside him had finally stopped pretending. Emily walked quickly to the bottom of the stairs. "It's okay," she called again, softer this time. I heard movement. Then footsteps coming down, slow, hesitant. Ethan appeared halfway down the stairs, gripping the railing tightly. His eyes were wide, his face pale. He looked at his mother first, then at Jason, then toward the phone still in Emily's hand. "Mom," he said quietly. Emily reached for him immediately. "Come here," she said, her voice trembling. He came down the rest of the way and pressed himself against her, holding on tightly. I heard he whispered. Emily closed her eyes, her arms tightening around him. "I know," she said softly. "I know." Jason exhaled slowly. "Emily." He said, his tone controlled again, but thinner, now strained. "You're overreacting, both of you." Emily didn't respond. She didn't even look at him, and that more than anything seemed to unsettle him. "Say something," he said, his voice sharper now. Still nothing. I could hear every second of it through the phone. The shift, the imbalance, the loss of control. "Jason," I said calmly, "this conversation is over." He didn't answer me. Instead, he spoke to Emily again. "You're letting this get out of hand," he said. "Your mother is putting ideas in your head." Emily's voice, when it came, was quiet but steady. "No," she said, "she's not." That stopped him, completely, because for the first time, Emily wasn't defending him. She was contradicting him. "I've felt something was wrong for a long time," she continued. "I just didn't want to see it." Jason stared at her. I could hear it in the silence, the disbelief, the recalculation. "You're tired," he said finally. "That's all this is." "No," she replied. "You've been overwhelmed," he insisted. "No, you're not thinking clearly." "Stop," she said. The word cut through everything, sharp, final. He went quiet. Emily took a slow breath. "I'm not signing anything," she said. "Not now, not later, not until I understand exactly what it is." Jason's tone changed again, lower, colder. "And who's going to explain it to you?" he asked. "Your mother." Emily didn't hesitate. "Yes," she said. Another silence. Then he laughed. but there was no humor in it. Of course, he said. Of course it comes back to her. This isn't about her, Emily said. This is about me. You don't even know what you're doing, he replied. I know enough, she said. His voice dropped further. You're making a mistake, maybe she said, but it's mine to make. That was it. That was the moment everything tipped. Jason stepped back slightly, running a hand through his hair. For a second, he looked different. Not in control, not polished, just exposed. You have no idea what you're risking, he said. Emily held Ethan closer. Maybe not, she said, but I know what I'm not risking anymore. And what's that, he asked. Myself, she said. Silence. Heavy, final. Jason didn't argue again, not right away. Instead, he turned and walked toward the kitchen. Slowly, deliberately. The sound of his footsteps faded. Then a cabinet door closed. Hard. Mom Emily whispered into the phone. I'm here, I said. He's not saying anything now, she said. That's worse, isn't it? Yes, I replied honestly, it is. Ethan clung to her. I don't want to stay here, he said quietly. Emily closed her eyes. I know, she whispered. That was the moment I had been waiting for, not because I wanted it to happen, but because I knew it would. Emily. I said firmly, it's time. There was a pause. Then she said, okay. Everything moved quickly after that, faster than I expected, faster than I was ready for, but there was no other way. Get your bag, I said. The one we talked about. I already packed it, she said. Good, take Ethan's things too, I added. Okay, don't argue with him, I said. Don't explain, just go. There was a moment of silence. Then what do I tell him, she asked. I thought for half a second. Nothing, I said. You don't owe him an explanation right now. She nodded, I could hear it in her breath. Okay, in the background I heard movement again. Jason coming back. Emily, he called. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He's coming. Stay calm, I said. I grabbed my keys again. I'm on my way. Where are you going? Jason asked, his voice sharper now. Emily didn't answer immediately. I'm taking Ethan to my mom's, she said. For what he demanded. Because I want to, she replied. That's not necessary, he said. You're overreacting. I don't feel safe here right now, she said. The words landed hard. I could hear it. So could he. What does that mean, he asked. It means I'm leaving, she said. Silence. Then you're not thinking clearly, he said again. I am, she replied. You're making this worse, he insisted. No, she said. I'm ending it. Another silence. Longer, heavier. And then fine, he said. Too quickly, too easily, go, he added. But I knew that tone. That wasn't acceptance. That was calculation. Again. Mom Emily whispered into the phone. He said, fine. I know, I said. Just go. I'm going, she said. I could hear the door opening. The sound of footsteps. Ethan's quiet breathing. And then the door closing behind them. By the time I pulled into the driveway, they were already there, standing outside, waiting. Emily looked different. Still shaken, still pale, but standing, holding Ethan's hand, not shrinking anymore. I got out of the car and walked straight to them. Without a word, I pulled them both into my arms. And for the first time since this began, we were all in the same place, safe for now. But as I looked past them toward the house behind us, I saw something in the window. Jason, watching, still, silent. And in that moment, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't over, not even close, because men like him don't lose everything quietly. They wait, they plan, and then they try one last time. That first night in my house, none of us slept well. Emily stayed in the guest room with Ethan, the door slightly open, as if even the act of closing it fully felt too final. I sat in the living room long after midnight, the lights off, listening to every sound. The house creaked the way houses do at night. The refrigerator hummed. A car passed outside, once its headlights sweeping briefly across the walls. And every time a shadow moved, my heart jumped, because even though we were physically safe emotionally, we were still inside that house, still waiting for something to happen. At around 2:00 a.m., I heard soft footsteps. Emily. She appeared at the edge of the hallway, wrapped in a blanket. Mom, she whispered. I'm here, I said quietly. She walked into the living room and sat beside me. For a moment, we didn't speak. Then she said, I keep thinking I hear him. I reached for her hand. You're safe here, I said gently. She nodded, but I could tell she was still listening for something that wasn't there. I didn't think it would feel like this, she said after a moment. Like what I asked. Like I just stepped out of something, but it's still holding on to me, she said. I squeezed her hand. That's normal, I said. It takes time. She leaned her head against my shoulder. I almost stayed, she whispered. I closed my eyes briefly. I know, I said. I kept thinking maybe I was overreacting, she continued, that maybe he was right. You weren't, I said firmly. I see that now, she said. But it took hearing him, really hearing him, to understand. That moment, those words. I don't deal well with weakness. They had broken something open, and once something like that is seen clearly, it can't be unseen. The next morning, reality settled in. This wasn't just about leaving. It was about what came next. Legal steps, practical steps, rebuilding. Linda arrived at 9:00 a.m. sharp. She carried a folder and a calm, focused energy that immediately steadied the room. "Good morning," she said, gently setting her things down. "Thank you for coming," Emily said. "Of course," Linda replied. "Let's sit." We gathered around the kitchen table. Ethan stayed close, quieter than usual, but calmer than the night before. Linda began without hesitation. "First, she said you did the right thing by leaving." Emily nodded. "Second, we move quickly now," Linda continued, "before he has time to reshape the situation." My chest tightened slightly. "What do you mean?" Emily asked. "It means we establish boundaries legally," Linda said. "We protect your access to finances, your parental rights, and your personal safety." Emily took a slow breath. "Okay, we'll start with documentation," Linda said. "Everything you brought, copies of signed papers, financial records, those will help establish a pattern." Emily glanced at me. "We have those," she said. "Good," Linda replied. She opened her folder. "I'm also preparing filings that can be used if he attempts to escalate, particularly around any claims about your mental capacity." Emily stiffened slightly. "He would really do that?" she asked. Linda met her eyes calmly. "He's already started building the narrative," she said. "We're simply getting ahead of it." Emily nodded slowly. "Okay." The rest of the morning was a blur of details. Bank accounts, access points, contacting Ethan's school discreetly, making sure all communication went through safe channels. It was overwhelming, but it was also grounding, because for the first time in a long time, Emily was making decisions again. Clear ones, her own. By early afternoon, things had settled into a strange temporary calm. Ethan was in the living room quietly reading the book I had given him days earlier. Emily sat across from me at the table, her shoulders less tense than they had been in weeks. And for a brief moment, it felt like we could breathe, until my phone rang. Unknown number. I knew who it was before I answered. "Hello, Clara." Jason, his voice was calm, too calm. "I was wondering when you'd call," I said. A brief pause. "I think we need to talk," he said. "I don't think we do," I replied. "This situation has gotten out of hand," he continued. "Emily left without any real explanation. She left because she felt unsafe," I said. Silence. Then a soft exhale. "That's not true," he said. "It is to her," I replied. Another pause. Then he said something that confirmed everything. "You've been influencing her," he said. There it was, the shift. From control to blame. "I've been supporting her," I said. "You've been interfering," he corrected. "No," I said calmly. "I've been listening." Silence again. Then "she's not thinking clearly," he said. I felt that familiar anger rise, but I kept my voice steady. "That's not your decision to make," I said. "It is if she's not capable of making it herself," he replied. The words landed exactly as I expected. Cold, calculated, prepared. "You really believe that?" I asked. "I believe she's been under a lot of stress," he said, "and that she needs stability. And you think you're the one to provide that?" I asked. "I've always been the one providing that," he said. I almost laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. "Jason." I said, my tone firm now. "This isn't going to go the way you think it is." There was a pause. Then very quietly, he said, "We'll see." The line went dead. I lowered the phone slowly. Emily was watching me. "What did he say?" she asked. I met her eyes. "He's not done," I said. She nodded. I didn't think he would be. That evening, as the sun began to set, the house felt different again, not tense, not fearful, but aware. We all knew this wasn't over. There would be legal steps, conversations, consequences. But something had changed in a way that couldn't be undone. Jason no longer controlled the narrative. He no longer controlled Emily, and most importantly, he no longer controlled the truth. Later that night, as I stood by the window looking out into the quiet street, I felt something settle inside me. Not relief, not yet, but certainty. We had crossed the hardest line, leaving. And once you leave something like that, you don't go back, no matter how difficult the road ahead might be. Behind me, I heard Emily's voice. "Mom." I turned. She was standing in the hallway, calmer than I had seen her in a long time. "Yes," she took a step forward. "I think I can finally see things clearly now," she said. I smiled softly. "I knew you would." She nodded, and for the first time since this began, there was no fear in her eyes, only clarity and strength, and that was something Jason would never be able to take from her again. It's strange how quiet life feels after something loud breaks, even when the noise was never raised voices, but control pressure and fear sitting quietly in the corners of a home. A few months have passed since that night, the night Emily walked out of that house with Ethan's hand in hers, the night everything finally shifted. If you had told me back then how things would unfold, I'm not sure I would have believed you, not because it was dramatic, but because it was steady. And sometimes steady healing feels harder to imagine than chaos. The legal process moved forward just as Linda predicted. Carefully, strategically. Jason tried, of course he did. At first he positioned himself as the reasonable one. Calm, concerned, misunderstood. He told mutual friends that Emily was under a lot of stress, that she had been struggling emotionally, that he was worried about her. But this time, the narrative didn't stick. Because Emily didn't stay silent. Not anymore. With Linda's help, we had already prepared the documents, the timeline, the pattern. Every small detail that once felt insignificant now told a clear story. And when that story was presented calmly, clearly, fact by fact, it became very difficult for Jason to maintain his version of reality, especially when his own words, the recording, sat quietly in the background, ready if needed. He never asked about it again, but I knew he remembered. The financial side unraveled quickly after that. Rob's investigation had been thorough. Jason's debts surfaced, hidden accounts, risky borrowing. The refinance process stalled once Emily formally withdrew her consent and raised questions. And without that access to money, the pressure on him became visible. Not just to us, but to others. People who had once admired his polished image began to step back, ask questions, look closer. And Jason didn't handle that well. But the most important changes weren't happening in courtrooms or financial records. They were happening in quieter places, at my kitchen table, in early morning conversations, in small, ordinary moments that had once been filled with tension and were now slowly being reclaimed. Emily started to come back to herself. It wasn't immediate, and it wasn't easy. There were days she doubted everything. Days she replayed conversations in her head, wondering how she hadn't seen it sooner. Days she questioned her own judgment. I should have known, she said to me once, sitting across from me with her coffee untouched. I reached across the table and took her hand. "No," I said gently. "You trusted someone you loved. That's not weakness." She looked down. "It feels like it," she whispered. I shook my head. "It's not," I said. "The problem isn't that you trusted. The problem is that he used that trust against you." She didn't respond right away, but I saw something shift in her eyes. Understanding, slow but real. Ethan changed too. At first he was quiet, watchful, like he was waiting for something to go wrong again. But over time the tension in him eased. He laughed more, spoke more, and one afternoon while we were sitting in the living room, he said something that stayed with me. "It's different here," he said. How I asked. He thought about it for a moment. "Quieter," he said. I smiled softly. "Good quieter?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah," he said, "not the scary kind." As for Jason, he faded. Not all at once, but gradually, like a shadow losing its shape in the light. There were still legal proceedings, still formalities, still consequences. But emotionally, he no longer had a place in our daily lives, and that more than anything was the real ending. One evening, a few months later, Emily and I sat on the back porch. The air was warm, the kind of evening that makes everything feel softer. Ethan was inside laughing at something on television, a normal sound, a safe sound. Emily leaned back in her chair, looking out at the yard. "I've been thinking about that night," she said. "Which one?" I asked. "The night you recorded him," she said. I was quiet for a moment. "I almost didn't," I admitted. She turned to look at me. "Why not?" "I didn't want to believe something was wrong," I said. She nodded slowly. I didn't either, she said. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she said something that made my chest tighten just a little. That one moment she said changed everything. I smiled faintly. Yes, I said, it did. But the truth is, it wasn't just that moment. It was everything that came after. The choice to listen to that feeling instead of ignoring it. The choice to ask questions instead of staying comfortable. The choice to act even when it was scary. Because sometimes the most dangerous situations aren't the loud ones. They don't announce themselves. They don't break down doors. They sit quietly in your life. They smile. They explain things calmly. They make you doubt yourself just enough that you stop asking questions. Until one day, you don't recognize your own voice anymore. I looked at Emily that evening, really looked at her, and I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. Peace. Not perfect, not untouched, but earned. Real. You're stronger than you think, I said. She smiled slightly. I didn't feel strong, she said. You don't have to feel it, I replied. You just have to be it. She let out a small breath. I think I'm starting to understand that, she said. I nodded. I know you are. That night, after she went to bed, I sat alone for a while. The house was quiet again, but this time, it was the good kind of quiet. The kind that doesn't hide anything. The kind that lets you breathe. I thought back to that first moment on the patio, the voice, the recording, the cold feeling in my chest, and I realized something I hadn't fully understood before. That moment wasn't about catching someone doing something wrong. It was about finally listening to something I had been ignoring. That small voice inside me that said, pay attention. And sometimes, that's all it takes. One moment of attention. One decision not to look away, to change everything. If you're listening to this and something in your life doesn't feel right, even if you can't explain it, don't ignore it. Ask questions. Pay attention. Trust yourself. Because the truth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers, and the people who listen are the ones who find their way out. Sometimes the most dangerous situations aren't the ones that leave visible scars. They are the quiet ones, the ones that slowly make you doubt yourself, the ones that replace your voice with someone else's version of who you are. What this experience taught me is something I wish more people understood sooner. Control doesn't always look like control. Manipulation doesn't always sound cruel. And danger doesn't always feel urgent until it is. Emily didn't fall into this because she was weak. She fell into it because she trusted someone she loved, and that's something many of us would do. But the most powerful moment in her story wasn't when she left. It was when she started to question, when she allowed herself to say, something isn't right. That's where change begins, and that's where strength lives. If this story touched you in any way, I'd really love to hear from you. Have you ever had a moment where your instincts told you something wasn't right? Where are you watching from, and what time is it there right now? Leave a comment and share your thoughts. And if stories like this matter to you, stories about family truth and finding your strength, don't forget to like and subscribe. Because sometimes hearing someone else's story is the first step to understanding your own.